Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa, your hostess with the mostest awesome guests and viewers. As today again is testament to the amazing Samantha Plested. Samantha is a beautiful woman, transsexual from the UK, who has agreed to talk to us, and I'm very grateful because I think I caught one of the earliest interviews or earlier interviews, and I just thought, gotta get hold of her. She's got to come talk to us, and yes, she is. So I'm very grateful to have Samantha join us, who's going to be talking about her journey as well, being born a natural boy and then transgendering. Is that the word, Samantha? I'm not sure because I'm going to ask you the difference um, into a woman that she is today. We're going to be talking as well about the current state of the LGBTQXYRZ, whatever state that the world is in, and just to get her ideas and her feeling on where we're at with this. So, welcome, Samantha. I am so happy to have you join me this evening, actually, for both of us, but it is a pre recorded interview, so this afternoon, this morning, wherever in the beautiful world you are, having a beautiful day. Welcome, Samantha.
Chantel, it's so lovely to be here. It is my honor and privilege to speak to you, and I really appreciate you inviting me to talk today because it's important. The message is very important,
Right.
and
I
we've
was
got work
about
to
to
do.
Yeah, I was about to say, these are such important times for us all. The world is changing in such a vast and dynamic way. And I think a lot of people have a problem staying abreast with whatever is going on. I'm a great believer that, people need to be who they are and express themselves in the way that makes them feel comfortable. And they have a right to do that. But, at what point do we draw the line when we see what's been happening in the
Yeah,
past 5, 10 years, especially? And especially, I know America and the UK is bad when it comes
yeah,
to what's been happening with kids. But maybe I can just start by asking you, um, and we are going to go into your childhood, but just as a preface to the show, the difference between being a transgender, transsexual, transvestite. I think there's been so much confusion when we've
yes,
been
totally.
especially looking at Leah Thomas, that American swimmer
Yep,
who has now been legally banned from women's sports. But thank God for to
yes,
Riley Gaines, who
that's right.
absolutely took that on and won. I mean, that
Love
was
it.
absolutely a
Win,
major,
such a major win for women,
yeah,
and that
absolutely. I
that will
agree.
reverberate around the globe. So it's waves, it's coming. Yeah, it's coming.
Absolutely. So maybe we can just start by you explaining the difference
Yeah,
between, because you're a transsexual,
I
right?
am. I am a
Yeah,
transsexual. A transsexual is somebody, and I always say it, has done the work. We've put the time in, we put the effort in, we make the effort, we've had surgery. That is a genuine transsexual person right there with
right,
gender dysphoria. We don't just wake up on a Tuesday morning and decide to go and dye our hair green or blue or all colours of the rainbow, pop in a couple of piercings and go, I'm non-binary, I'm trans. It doesn't work like that. Oh,
right,
and then you've got so those people are, when they say they're trans, they I think they just want to belong to a group, any group. It's just to belong somewhere. They could be
right,
lonely, there could be other things going on, but trans is just a mirage. It's not real. It's just been, yeah, that's one thing. Then you got cross dressers. I call them like the Rocky Horror Show lot, with the fishnet
Trans,
tights.
is that
Like,
transvestites,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, transsexual transvestite from Transylvania. You know, it's like that, but that kind of stuff needs to stay in the bedroom. And
Right,
this is where all the waters have got muddied, because
right,
everyone was happy in the transsexual space, right? Because I don't forget, people forget, I was on the gay scene for 23 years, 23
right.
years, and I saw a lot, and I've seen how it's changed. The transsexuals were accepted. We were um, there was tolerance, you know. We were, and there was a community. But then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, governments got lazy. Um, Trans activists came into the picture and started shouting, and they then changed the term to transgender, which
Mm,
means anybody can identify as whatever they want to identify. And at the same time, you've now got it infiltrated with PDF files, um, kinks and pervs. People don't want to talk about it. I mean, you've only got to look at, touching on what you said earlier, you've only got to look at gay pride, for example, right? Look at the state of
right,
that now around the world. Where,
right,
where do you see them walking along with like just pictures of like all those people that have died or been murdered or abused around the world in cities and countries where they don't have the luxuries that we have in the West, right?
right.
All they're doing is parading along now. And I'll say it once and I'll say it again to the day I pop my last breath. They leave their self-respect, pride, and dignity in the house when they leave, dressed like that, with their bottoms hanging out. I won't swear. Their bottoms hanging out, their breasts hanging out, everything in between. You've got furries, you've got straight people saying they're queer because they've got a little bit of makeup on their face. Um, it's just got very confusing. And then also they're aiming it towards children with all the cartoony advertising, trying to get to the children, right? All of this is, again, it's all a power play to get to the children.
Exactly.
But this is the difference between transsexuals who genuinely want to be women, that want to go about their daily business quietly with their dignity and their self-respect, because they want to be a woman. We don't want to infringe on them. We don't want to take away any of their rights. We don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, because if you do not want to do any work and you want to identify as a woman and you want someone to give you that respect, you're
Right,
not going to get it unless you try. You cannot expect to go into a women's space, have done no work, and expect to be addressed as such without making a woman feel uncomfortable. Because if you're doing it selfishly and you're not taking women into consideration, that is the cost. Because you need to look, and it goes back to look in the mirror. And if you look a certain way, you've got to be honest with yourself and say, am I going to scare women?
right.
I'm
I
sorry,
mean,
it hurts, but it's the truth.
I think, when we're looking at that, it's exactly what you're saying. There's a big difference between someone who's been born with genuine uh, gender dysphoria,
Yep.
and that I have no doubt genuinely exists. But as you say, there's a process that one has to go through.
Yes.
You know, um, there has to be a maximum time that you have your therapy, that you go through whatever it is you need to go through for you to feel completely secure in the knowledge that this is the life change that you want, that's going to be best for you and those around you,
Yep.
right? And
Correct.
even if they don't agree, it doesn't matter. You still have to feel what you're doing is fulfilling you. But when we're having the situation, which I'm sorry, to me, in so many instances, really seems like mental health issues. You're looking at some of these youngsters at universities nowadays. I mean, it's bordering on barbaric.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
the 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 type of stuff that goes on there. I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube stuff, so it's all over, especially with this and involving children, these men that are clearly men that are putting on makeup. And I'm going to mention this one guy is Dylan, I think his name is.
Dylan Mulvaney.
That's him.
Yeah,
I mean, sitting there
he's a
telling the
grifter. He's a grifter.
children,
Mm.
telling the children not to listen to their parents and join his Patreon, where they can discuss things personally
I
and
I
privately.
think that's Jeffrey Marsh. He's the one with the
Okay,
beard.
that's right.
He's the
Dylan is
one.
the very public one, right? Jeffrey Mark is the other
Yeah,
one. Yes,
Jeffrey
yes,
Marsh is Jeffrey Marsh is the Patreon child groomer who says, uh, "Don't speak to your parents, speak to me."
yeah,
And
exactly.
sometimes even the parents are even passing the phone to him, right? And to me, it's disgusting. It's grooming of the highest order. He actually makes my skin crawl. I can't. It makes me want to be sick in my mouth a little bit when I see him. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
and but I have to look at him sometimes and I have to check him out, but I can't stand doing it. But I have to because I got to keep my finger on the pulse to see what he's doing. And then you got someone like Dylan Mulvaney, who was a failed musical theatre person, um, became a grifter, lost Budweiser loads of money, right? Then all these silly companies jump on board trying to go woke, right? But you will go broke. Look at Disney, right? Come on, Snow White, it's the biggest bomb in history. You know, thank you, Rachel Ziegler, for all your
Right.
silly comments, right? It's
It's
just
so
so
true.
ridiculous, so ridiculous. Yeah, I always go back to it. Trans isn't real. This is all a mirage, and it's just confusing everybody. And we need to pull the reins in, Chantel. That's what we're here to why we're talking today, right?
Mm, I agree with that, but I think it's also important that people differentiate
Yes,
between, I mean, there's another woman, Alexis, as well, that I follow. She's also a British woman that is,
yes.
and
Is it Alexis Blake? Is it Alexis Blake?
Alexis Blake. Yes, I
She's
think she's
lovely.
lovely.
She's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, and Blair White, of course. Blair White is
Yes.
probably one of the most
Res res
controversial.
Respect to Blair
I
White.
love
So
Blair
much
White.
respect to Blair. Because you know something, again, Blair knows who she is. And
Yeah,
again, my views align so much with Blair, Buck, Marcus Stibb, and many others. I mean, yeah, we do align. Um, but the trans thing, it's nobody identifies as trans. Let's start from that. You don't wake up and go, Mummy, I'm trans. You identify as male or female. Um, Even though when I was younger, I knew I felt different. And I always say this, I could never say that I felt like a girl because I didn't know what a girl feels like. So I only knew I felt different from my two brothers.
how how would you define that different feeling? If you can, I mean, if you say you don't know what a girl feels like, for sure, I get that. I don't know what a boy feels like.
Right.
But how would you define how you felt different? In what way? Did you see yourself being more compassionate? Were you more creative? Did you like to wear girls' clothes? Did you like to wear makeup? Stuff like that.
Yeah. Um, Now, this is a given memory. My mum said to me, we were shopping. I was a small baby and we went shopping. And she said to me, what do you want? And apparently I asked for a little pink pram. And my mum bought it for me. This is like 1973 or four. Okay, so my mum's come home. And apparently my mum said to me and dad had a little tiny argument about why did he buy me that? Why did mum buy me that? And she said, well, because he wanted it. He don't know, he wanted it. And I would push, and I pushed a loaf of bread all the way home in my little pram. And I used to go up and down the street with a brick in it, with a brick in it.
Were
And
you imagining it was a baby
yeah,
or a doll? What were you imagining
well,
was in
my
there?
my mum said I was pretending there was a baby in there.
Right.
pushing it up
So
and down the street.
you immediately identified with the feminine spirit,
Yeah.
the feminine quality, which I find very interesting because my son, when he was born, he wasn't even crawling properly, right? And there was a car, a little plastic toy car, obviously on the carpet in the lounge. And he took it and he immediately went boom, 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 boom. I'm like, what? How do you know? You know? And I think that exactly is a telltale sign, which brings me again to what I believe.
Well,
Like,
it can and can't be. It can and
yeah,
can't be because sometimes they just might be drawn to certain things, but then grow up into a completely normal heterosexual person. So
yes,
there can be little signs along the way if you're looking for them. But if you're not, and you're just parenting and not giving any of that wokery hokey pokey nonsense, you'll just let your child do what they do.
right.
You know?
I think and as you say, most parents, you're born a boy, you do what boys do,
Right.
you know. You don't cry, you don't wear dresses, you don't whatever it is, bake cakes, you play with trucks and toys. That's what boys do. But as you say,
But saying that though, I think that has slightly changed now. I think
yeah,
boys are doing all of those things and girls are doing all of those things, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay. I mean, back to the dresses thing. That's okay in the confines of your own home, playing dress up with your sister. But I don't agree with anyone popping that dress on that child and then taking that child to school. That I don't
I
agree with.
agree.
Dress
I
up at
agree.
home is playtime.
Yes.
You might have seen Strictly Come Dancing or the sparkles, right? That's okay. But then, because that's what kids do, they see with their eyes and they see sparkly, sparkly, or whether you're a boy or girl, you might be drawn to sparkles. Glitter. We all love glitter when we were little kids, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right? When we were making Christmas cards and getting the glitter, I loved it. I mean, all the boys loved it, making Christmas cards. So sparkly things we're drawn to, like little kids can be magpies, right? Um, and I think that could be genderless, being a little kiddie magpie. Um, and that's okay too. Um, and I just think we should let little kids be little kids. No adult should be buying a dress for a child to wear specifically to school. I'm completely against any children socially transitioning.
I agree.
I think it's cruel. I think you're not really taking into consideration the other kids. You're not taking into consideration the distraction that's going to cause in the classroom. And then you've got the possibility of other kids wanting to wear the dress because that other kid's getting special attention. So they want special attention, right?
And then it becomes
And then it
that
becomes a thing, right?
attention seeking thing, because
Right?
even if you're getting negative attention, you're still getting attention.
Attention.
And very often it's when something in you, if it's for that reason, okay, there could be a myriad of reasons.
Yeah.
I get that. But if, let's say, there is that a kid coming to school in a dress and makeup and everyone was giving him attention and laughing and playing with him and what have you, and tomorrow you do that and you get the same or similar, and then that external attention seeking thing, that you constantly needing validation from others and you so don't want to be part of the norm, because now your little perception is that the norm is boring and the norm is mundane and the norm is for squares, square, the word squares.
Yeah.
Um, and so I like to go out there and be this and do that, and I'm different, and the world doesn't understand me, because it's only cute to dress up for a certain amount of time, right? But
But what I will say is, sorry to interject, but at what point, how does a child, because I have to go back to my childhood, right, for a split second, because if you don't know, children are a product of their environment,
right,
right? How would a child ever form those words? Let's say, for example, take me back to 7 or 8. I wouldn't know what trans was. So how could I say as a 7-year-old child, I'm trans? Now,
Mm.
if my child came home and said to me, they're trans, I go, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? I can guarantee you that child's not going to know what that means because they've heard it somewhere. They might have had a trans child at school now. So they're all identifying as trans because it's only what they've heard. It's all
Exactly.
nonsense. It's all
And
nonsense,
it's become the brainwashing.
right?
It really has become the brainwashing for the woke society.
This is
But
well,
it's
this is
in,
what well, this goes back to why we have to differentiate between trans and transsexualism because it's very
exactly,
important to draw that line because, and this is why I stand with J.K. Rowling, you see, because J.K. Rowling, I can guarantee you she's not a transphobe at all, right? She doesn't like men saying they're women, right? And when you put, and I say this, if you poke the bear like someone like J.K. Rowling, you've got to expect a bear to be a little bit clawy and bitey, right?
exactly.
I mean, pick your fights, people, please. Pick your battles. Um, so
It's
this,
true.
right? So this is why I'm also here because I stand with J.K. Rowling, and a lot of my sisters would stand with me. I'm not speaking for everybody, clearly, because I'm sure there's some aren't going to agree with me. But I'm not here to be liked. I'm not here to make friends. It would be nice along the way, like I have this opportunity to meet you, which is wonderful, and I feel a connection with you. You're a beautiful human
Likewise.
being, right? And we are singing from the same hymn sheet, Chantal,
Mm,
and,
absolutely.
and we want to save the children because that's my goal at the end of the day is to save the children from this indoctrination, the ideology, and get it out of schools.
Because of course we know that as long as the earlier they get the children,
That's
they're
right,
indoctrinated, and then they'd
right?
go through like all sorts of different certain children depending will they literally mind control them, and
Yeah,
others through indoctrination. And the kids in our schools are certainly indoctrinated
yeah,
with whatever the government wants to feed us.
yep,
We
yeah,
have to accept that that's what we have to do. But I'd be interested to know, speaking about children, let's go back to your childhood.
yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe we can talk about, yeah, let's talk about your childhood, because I always think when someone makes such an extreme life change, right? There's something that molds that, in my opinion. I'd love to hear. I
yeah.
would love to hear what
Okay,
you,
I'm going to go back to say my first memory, which was I was about 5, and we just moved to a new home. And I remember my father was he'd hired an industrial floor polisher, the ones that rotated like that.
yeah.
And it had like a motor on the top, and it was just big enough for my 5-year-old bottom to sit on it. And my dad was going around the front room polishing the floor, and I was sitting on it. That's one of my first beautiful memories of my dad, with his 70s hair, bushy hair, pushing me around the front room. Lovely. It's a beautiful memory. Um, and then my parents were loving. They loved us all so much. I mean, I couldn't have, as a child, been surrounded by so much love. Um, so yeah, growing up, and I remember there was about a time when I was about 7, before I was ever touched, which I'll go into slightly. Um, I was about 7, and I was with my brothers, and I remember saying, "Say I'm your sister." We were like outside playing in a little group, and I remember saying it, "Say I'm your sister," and my brother was like, "I'll stop it," or something like that. But something in me then knew, I don't know, something in me knew it was, I don't know, not going to wash. I don't know, something in me knew. So even though I always felt kind of different, even with our willies, our penises, um, I always didn't, it didn't feel right. It's only way I can explain it to you. It just, even though I knew I had it, and my brothers were like, I don't know, it just didn't. It's very hard to explain because
Yeah,
you're a
I can
child. Because
understand.
you're a child,
Yes.
and you're
And
just trying to understand what feelings are. You
yeah,
know?
exactly. And you're just not comfortable in your body, and you want
Yes.
to be the sister, and you
Exactly.
can't understand why the heck
Yeah.
you have these foreign appendages
Right. It's
on your
there.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, growing
Uh,
up, yeah. So my childhood was really great up until about 8 years of age. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about this. We don't really need to because this isn't too much about that. But I was, I'm not going to regurgitate Liam's interview because I was sexually abused as a child. Things happened, um, 3 different occasions. Prison sentences were handed out. Um, and now this is where I have to let people understand that even though, yes, I was sexually abused, um, one being a family member and not my immediate family, i.e., within my immediate family unit, it was an uncle, and I've spoken about it before. I don't need to go into detail again today, but those things happened, and I can guarantee you right now, I can look you right in the eye and say to you, that has nothing to do with why I've transitioned. I'm not running away from my abusers. I'm not running away from anything
right.
because all of that happened to me. Yes, it did. Um, I'm a stronger person today because of it. I am where I am. I'm totally resilient. Um, I love myself today. Of course, things have happened, and throughout those incidents within my family, certain things happened, and I've had to have forgiveness, which you and I have spoken about.
Yes.
And I'm not going to go into detail about that, but we know, and
Yes.
I come from forgiveness, and I come from love. And even though it was a time, and we get that a lot, don't we? People say, well, it was that time, wasn't it? No one spoke about things like they didn't speak about the birds and the bees then.
Right.
Um, uh, do I? And there's not a blame thing here. And I always say this because I love my dad so much. My dad and I are like that. My mother passed away in 2008, God rest her soul. My mother, Mary Plested. Um, and I loved my mother so much, I can't begin to tell you. And like I said the other day, when we spoke, I said I've on this journey, I've now become to have a newfound love and respect for my parents. Even though the past is the past, when I look back and see how much they did love me, and even though things happened, but I knew they loved me. And I know at times they were probably, I don't know, up against the wire. Perhaps things were compartmentalized for them too. Because I've spoken to my brother about this after we spoke. And
Right.
yes, I spoke to him about it and I told everything that we spoke about. And he said, well, yeah, sometimes like you compartmentalize, perhaps they did as well.
Exactly.
So with forgiveness and love comes more love. That's my
Indeed.
feeling. That's my lived experience. And I love my dad very much indeed. Um, and my family bond is extremely strong. And through all of this journey, I've now got my family back.
Wow.
And that podcast with Liam was also part of the catalyst.
Wow. That's
Mm,
amazing.
yeah,
It
I'm
just
blessed.
shows, when we start speaking and we start sharing with the right intention,
Yeah,
we're going to have a beautiful outcome. Because
that
that's really, when I've spoken with so many survivors over the years, and many of them, they've spoken on this channel the first time they've shared their stories. And it's so healing for people,
yeah,
you know, and especially for survivors, for the first time ever, people are saying, I believe you. I mean, they've been through the most horrific things and never believed before, were locked up, were silenced, were blackmailed, were, horrible things. And now, the public is believing. Not
yeah.
everyone, but a much larger part
Just being
of
believed by,
society.
just being believed by anybody. You don't have to be believed by everybody, but being believed, and also, and first of all, my heart goes out to all those survivors out there around the world. My heart goes out to you. Okay, you are believed, you are loved. Okay, um, but yeah, it's being, but yeah, back to my uncle that abused me. After speaking about this, my brothers told me that he also tried it on with them. 2 of them. He went down the chain. 1, 2, 3. And he got me. So that in itself was so freeing for me to hear that when I finally spoke about it with him. And yeah, that was a moment. That was a moment. Again, like a lead cloak is lifted off of you, another layer of that cloak is
Right.
gone. And you're like,
Right.
go from 5 foot to 6 foot to 7 foot to 8 foot to 12 foot tall because you're believed and
Right.
freeing.
And it's so good because it really does wash out those old, nasty, smelly laundry boxes that have been
Yeah,
there since forever.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's really amazing.
yeah,
When you say, I mean, this was your uncle was obviously, was he the first one that abused you?
yes.
And
He was,
how old were you?
I think I must have been about, I don't know, 8.5, eight and a
Okay.
half, something like that. But it went on over a period of time because he did live in our house for a brief spell. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I don't really want
Easy
to go into,
access.
yeah, yeah, well, yeah, but he wasn't there very long, and then he was there and then gone. Because even one of my brothers didn't remember him being there. So I had to check in with my older brother, and he said, yeah, he was there. He was there. He was in the small room. So he remembers. So not everybody remembers the same things in your
Right.
childhood, because even now, there's so much recently, because I've been, I don't use the word regurgitating, but I suppose I am in a way. When you're going over your history and you're laying it all out on the table in front of you and you're flicking through the memories in your head, right? You don't
Right.
you don't get it all. So you have to go to your archives, which is your family and their memories. And they're giving me memories of things that happened. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh God, I
True.
slightly remember that. Oh, I don't remember that. And it's amazing how we can all be in the same room, but not have that memory. I
Right.
find it fascinating.
Is.
Well, how do you remember that? And I didn't remember that. And then sometimes they'll say something, it'll trigger a memory, and I go, oh yeah, I remember that now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's so I was. This is why I say I was very blessed, and this is why I think sometimes people think I'm being contradictory, because even though I had that happen in my life, again, it comes back to the ability children compartmentalizing, because I remember after the abuse, I was given a social worker, and my family had to go to a social services centre, and we had to go into a room, and it was a big room, loads of toys everywhere, and a huge one-way mirror. Now, I don't know how I knew, but I knew it was a one-way mirror, or two-way mirror. Um, and it felt like being, I don't know, I felt like I was roping my family into some form of misery.
How
And
did, I mean, you say that you were there, you were given a social worker because of the abuse. Who
yes,
reported the abuse? At what point was it your uncle
well,
or was
no,
this another case?
basically what happened, I was abused once, and I was abused by a friend of the family, to give you some context. So my
Right.
uncle first, friend of the family second, pardon me. And he groomed me, friend of the family, came round the house, he moved in across the road. He was a mechanic, came over with his dog. My mum was busy with 4 kids. She's got a baby, she's got kids running around. So they come and they pick off the weak from the flock, don't they? Because they can see the injured bird. There's me,
Right.
there's me, my injured wing. So just clips me off from the fold. And he asked me to go up and clean at his flat. I was cleaning, and then he started to sexually abuse me. And then that stopped. I just stopped going over there because he tried to get somebody else involved. But that was part of a child porn sex ring, a very large one. And I didn't have to go to court on any of these. But he got 9.5 years in prison. when it all came out. And then after that, I got abused by a man in a public toilet. And he got 2.5 years in prison. But when it all came out, how it came out, I was supposed to go to an event with a friend of mine, like November the 5th, Guy Fawkes, where they tried to blow up Parliament years ago.
Yeah.
But sadly they failed their attempt. God, how the different the landscape would look now. But
Samantha.
I digress. I digress.
Wild.
That's a whole nother wormhole.
Exactly. That's like a snake hole, never mind a wormhole.
Right, gosh. So yeah, so where was I? Put me back. Oh, sorry, where was I? This happens sometimes.
No. It's all good. You were talking about the abuse
Yes. Yeah,
and
so the man in the toilet got 2.5 years, and the way it came out was I was supposed to go with a friend to a Guy Fawkes parade, and I had the flu. I couldn't go. I was too ill. So my brother went in my place, and bearing in mind at this time the man in the public toilet was giving me £6 per time that I met him, and I was seeing him 3 times a week. And so I was getting, that was a lot of money then. I was 12 at this stage, 12. And so, and my family didn't have a lot of money. We weren't cash rich. We had a nice house, we had nice clothes, we were loved, we had food in the cupboard, but we didn't have a lot of money. It was one parent family. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. So I'm getting this money. And my friend said to my brother, just one innocent comment. He said, "How come Sam's always got money and you haven't?"
ooh,
And my brother came home that night, came in. I was upstairs in bed with the flu, and he came in and regaled that story to my parents. And my mother called me downstairs. She sat me in the chair and she said, "Where are you getting your money from?" And I said, what are you talking about? She said, "I've been told you've had some money." And cut a long story short, I confessed that I was playing with a man in the public toilet. And that was, yeah, my dad, again, my dad ran his fingers through his hair, and I could see him sitting on the couch, ran his fingers through his hair. And my mum stood up and she said, "Did John Thornton touch you?" And he was the friend of the family. And I said, "Yes." And then my dad stood up and he made this, anyway, I've described as like a guttural kind of like, and he ran his fingers through his hair. And then my mum immediately stepped forward and she like he pulled his arms down and she said, "John, we're going to do this properly. We're going to do this properly. We're going to do this the right way." Because what I've never really said to anybody about this is that my dad told me years later that he actually wanted to go over, and this is going to be quite descriptive here, but my dad said he wanted to go over the road, he wanted to kidnap him, and he wanted to take him up the road, up the lanes, the country lanes where we lived, and he wanted to chop his head off and kill him. Now I come from a family that's not we don't take a lot of stuff lying down, if you know what I mean. My family, my dad come from a family and extended family, they don't take no nonsense. They lovely people, but they just don't take any nonsense, that kind of, they're just good people. And I understand how my dad, and I think a lot of parents would feel the same. It's when someone lays a hand on your child, that's the most heinous of things that you can do. It's up, it's and that's why I feel so strongly about it, because when I think about that and I think about what could have happened, I may not have my dad today if that had have happened. If my mum hadn't stopped my dad from losing it, that strong woman that my mother was, John, I've got this. We're going to do it. We'll call the police. We do it the right way. Because my mum must have known exactly what my dad was thinking. So yeah. And that's when, yeah, it all came out, and I was wrapped in cotton wool. I couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything for an extended period of time. Yeah, and then my childhood, yeah, and then that goes back to the social worker, because we were having the observations. I think it happened once or twice, and then I kind of internalized it all. I didn't want my family being affected anymore. I didn't want to speak to the social worker, so I was just like, yeah, everything's great, everything's great, everything's great. But inside, I was broken. I was a broken child, because I can even remember after it happened, there was one time I would sit in dark rooms. I would go in the room and I'd shut the door and I'd sit there below the windowsill with my legs pulled up underneath me, and I would sit there cuddling my legs next to the radiator. And I remember one night, my dad doesn't remember this, but I did tell him years later. He opened the door, like the door opens and you can see my dad's shadow in the light of the hallway, and he just opened the door and then closed it. And I thought, did he see me there? Did he see me sitting there or not see me sitting there? But my dad doesn't remember that. But it's one of those memories that sticks in your head, because at the same time, and I go back to this, how difficult it must have been for my parents to have like gone through it. Even though I went through it, I can't imagine how it must have been for them.
Well, I've never been through that with my son, but I can tell you that if I had, I probably would have felt the same way as your dad. I think there's no worse powerless feeling for a parent to realize that your child has been compromised in that way while you were right there. But I'm glad that you've managed to talk through that with him. I think that's very
Yeah,
healing.
it's you know something, I don't get emotional about my life at all, really, very rarely. But sometimes when we touch on things like this, it's I'd like to think that we live in different times now, but sometimes I think I'm not so sure, Chantel. You know, with the rise of it seems to me like there's really dark forces at work, and I feel like they're trying to get to the children, and I can't let that happen because the mama bear in me. Because I would have loved to have had my own children, Chantel. Sorry, I'm not the most prettiest of criers, but I'm your worst enemy. I'm a sexually abused transsexual woman. And I'm going to build a movement, Chantel, because we need to push back against all of this. We need to disband
Absolutely.
Pride. Pride needs to get back what it should originally meant and what it stood for. Until that time happens, it should be disbanded around the world completely, get rid of it all. And we need to pull back on trying to recruit children, because children deserve a childhood. And it's a rite of passage. Children just have their puberty. Because that's one of the most defining times in your life when you're a child, is puberty. And of
Right.
course, it's going to be hard for some children that have gender dysphoria. It's going to be tough, but you've got to tough it out. Puberty blockers
You
shouldn't
know,
be given to children. Um, sorry, Chantal, back over to you. Sorry.
I so appreciate you sharing that, really. Obviously, I know this is an emotional topic. So, and especially when it comes to the children, we speak a lot about the child trafficking that occurs and unfortunately what happens with these children. Um, and yes, it's not just the children that they are kidnapping, it's the entire planet. It's the advertising, the way the kids are indoctrinated, the way they are, the education they're given. I mean, I was saying, the other day, not too long ago, I went into one of the clothing stores and I was in the kids department and I always look to buy my granddaughter things. And there was a 3 to 4 year old little girl's G-string bathing costume. I'm like, come on, guys. And I remember a while ago there was a big furore about it. And they said, oh, well, it's supply and demand. So they're looking, the parents are apparently, or it's demand that these children are wearing these little clothes and
I don't,
sexualizing kids.
I don't buy that.
I don't agree with that.
I
They're
don't buy that.
creating the demand.
I agree.
And there are going to be many innocent parents thinking, oh, well, my little 2 year old looks so cute in a G-string. I mean, no,
No. And that little kid
no,
is then playing around a pool with loads of people around, and you don't know who's perving on your child, right?
exactly.
All children should always have a little all-in-one. Little kiddies should have a little all-in-one. That's it,
I
period.
agree.
Sorry,
Yes, I agree to cover. And I mean,
everything.
because we hear the pedos say when the kid's doing a cartwheel on the beach, he thinks, well, he assumes that's her flirting with him and trying to seduce him. I mean, you hear these guys talk like that, and there's something very scary. And yes, unfortunately, which actually brings me to the question, why do you think so many gay men, especially, have been labeled pedos? Do you think there's a lot of truth in that? Or is this again some type of, because I know a lot of gay men, I have a lot of gay men friends,
I
and
don't know.
other than one that's questionable,
Do you know
I,
something?
I
I
would
think,
say the others no.
because you know something, that leads into one of my followers sent me a question the other day about she's really concerned, and this is a shout out to Coco on my ex account. She asked me a question about she's concerned that the LGB community are going to get blamed for what's going on with the trans and the pedos. Now, let's be under no illusion. There's pedos everywhere.
Yeah,
Okay. Of course, you're going to get some gay men. And from my experience of all the gay men that I've known in my life, I've never known one pedo. Why would I? A pedo, I wouldn't want to know a pedo. And pedos, if they are going to do it, they're going to keep it on the down low. They're not going to be out there broadcasting it. Well, eventually, until it gets made normalized by if that's the way we're going. But it's not going to happen on
yeah,
my watch. As long as I've got a dying breath in me, it's not going to happen. I'm going to be doing what I'm doing my activism, doing what I have to do to eradicate this. Right. Um, when you've got a woman standing up on a stage in Germany, and I was really offended by this, Chantel, the fact that it was a woman standing up on stage. I think it might have been Germany somewhere, saying that we have to feel sorry for PDF files because it's a mental health disorder. I've got a
well,
problem with
that's
that.
what they're trying to push it as now,
No,
and they're
no, no,
calling
no,
it,
no.
what
Matt,
is it they're calling it?
Matt, minor attracted persons, Matt,
That's
minor
right.
attracted persons. That's a softening of the language. That's trying to make everything normal. That's trying to give them reach, right? The trans movement. It's all like, it's very insidious. People don't know it. They're not opening their eyes and they haven't got their listening ears on, right? Eyes and ears, people. Look, it's there for you to see. You just got to join the dots, right? This has all been sent to destroy the West for pedophiles to get their wicked way with your children, get them when they're young, their little malleable brains, and then indoctrinate them all with the LGBTQIA. They've just learned their ABCs and they're learning about the LGBT. Come on, right? Wake
True.
up. I'm
It's
okay. Listen, you can talk about LGB in year 11, right? When they're the year before they go to senior school, right? But then I spoke to somebody earlier and she said, well, children are starting their some children start their periods younger now, so they have to have that conversation earlier. Well, I said, well, that conversation should be had with mum and dad, right? That shouldn't that should happen with mum and dad. If you've got a little girl, it's your duty to talk to your little girl at home about what's happening to her body, right? You don't necessarily have to leave that to the school. We can't leave everything to the schools, right? Parent,
mm,
parent your child, right? If you've got a little
exactly
girl, address it that way. If you've got a little boy, tell him about the birds and the bees. Make sure they know that if anyone touches your special bits, you come straight to mum and dad. And I don't care if it's Uncle Tom or if it's Auntie Sally. If anyone, no one is allowed to touch your special bits unless it's your mum and dad, right? Because you
exactly
might go help your son go a wee or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Now, I'm not taking away any facts here that there are some men that actually abuse their children, because we know it happens, right? But at the same time, your special bits are your special bits. And it's your duty as a parent to let your child know nobody touches them. And if they do, you come running and screaming, right?
right. Exactly.
Woo, woo,
Exactly.
woo. There's no in between, right? The nearest you run and scream, you tell someone just touched your privates, right? That's
Do
what you
you
do.
think, do you think in your situation, if you had said something to your parents, that they would have, because I think this is a big fear for the kids, obviously, is that they are so manipulated by the seducers. And I mean, these pedophiles are completely, I mean, they are so seductive. They know exactly how to seduce the kids
They
in,
do. They do. They do.
so, and they will threaten the children, not overtly, but our special secret, that we can't say, otherwise I won't be able to come anymore. We'll both get into trouble, this sort of thing. So do you think that if you had said anything to your parents, do you think something might have changed in your particular instance?
Well, I thought about this recently, and again, this isn't a blame game, okay? Because my parents never had that conversation with me about if anyone touches your special bit. That never happened. My parents, and I even spoke to my brothers about this. They never even discussed the birds and the bees with us. They had 4 boys, right?
Mm,
They never discussed the birds and the bees. We had to figure it out for ourselves. I mean, I was figuring out my homosexuality from a very early age, all on my own. I never had that conversation. I was always, well, yeah, I was just always searching for who I was, I guess, from my,
when did you, I mean, with your brothers, did they, it's kind of more than one layer to this question.
yeah.
Did they Did they suspect that you were gay as a child or whatever?
Oh, well, after the abuse happened, um, I would get called queer a lot indoors. You little queer.
Okay.
If we had a little argument, they'd be, oh, you little queer. Um, I would, I did find out years later that everybody around me knew that I say different, but I say gay, because recently he told me that he had about 5 or 6 fights over me, because people would say, your brother's a puff, didn't you? Your brother's a
Mm.
puff, and he'd get into arguments. But I never knew that, so they were always defending me in the background, and I was just getting on. But I did have fights even in senior school. The secret got out that I'd been abused, because one of my friends was dating a member of my family's a removed extended member of the family. They were dating their daughter, and somebody divulged what happened to me, and he came to school and told everybody. So then I was having fights at school, and the very last time I was 15, and I was behind the gym, and I was having a cigarette with the girls, and as you do. And it was raining, slightly raining, and I remember rolling around in the mud with this guy who was attacking me, because I was homosexual, even before I knew it. And then I went home covered in mud, And I walked in the door and my mum looked at me and my mum grabbed my arm and she marched me up the school and she dragged me into the headmistress's office. And this is right before I was supposed to sit my final exams for my education. I'd sat my mocks, but I hadn't sat my actual exams. And my mum marched into the office and she said, Mrs. Bottrell, if you cannot look after my son, I am taking him home. Now, I'm being very polite in what I'm saying to you here, because there was quite a few expletives in that sentence that my mother gave. And I swear Mrs. Bottrell's hair was like blowing in the wind as my mother was like shouting in her face. Her hair was like fluttering. And my mum just dragged me and went home and I never went back to school. Never sat any exams. And my first job was McDonald's. And I went and I said I hadn't got my I said I had my national insurance card, but I forgot it. And then it came through, I got the job, and then my life started. That's when my life really started, when I got out into the big wide world. And
Right.
that's when I started, I went to my first gay club when I was 16.
So you were living the life of a gay man, gay boy.
I
Uh,
started to, yeah.
yeah. Did you feel that you were more attracted to men at that stage? Were you attracted to men or women,
Men.
even though you were living
We,
a gay life?
well, actually, slightly going back, when I was growing up, I dated because I had to.
Right.
I felt I had to date. I didn't want to. I didn't like kissing girls when they kissed me. I didn't like their soft lips. I don't know what it was about their lips. I didn't like it. I can't explain how it felt. It didn't feel natural.
Yeah.
Didn't feel
No,
natural.
I get that.
So
A friend of mine, actually, she's also like born. She's a gay woman, never been with a man, likes men, you know, loves. She rides bikes and very feminine. I mean, long blonde hair. I mean, very sassy, you know, and but she just says, I don't like the smell of a man, and it's not body odor. It's just there's something about a man's smell, his scent, that's not for her. She's
th-
never
th-
been with a man and she doesn't
those,
want to.
yeah,
Yeah,
those pheromones aren't doing it for her.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
Um,
interesting. When she said that to me, I went, ah, got it.
yeah,
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah. I get
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Back to your
Interesting.
question. For me, the minute I kissed a man, well, even though I was growing up, I did have a little boyfriend growing up. Not a boyfriend. We were like we were just like dibble dabble with each other growing up until the age of 18. I was always dipping in and out with him a little bit. But even though I was 16, went to my first gay club, I did all that on my own because even though I was seeing my friend on and off, he was closeted. Still is today. Still today he's closeted. Paul, if you're out there, you're closeted. Step out the darkness, darling, and be honest with yourself. Paul, you know who you are. Um, I mean, he's now got a child, I mean, why? And then actually talking about him, I'm going to speak about him for a moment because I started transitioning in 2017. He came round my house in 2018. Now I'm standing in front of him. He came round my house because he came to my father. He was invited to my father's 70th birthday. And I turned round in the pub. And at this stage, I was still Samuel. Because I'm not ashamed of my dead name. They call it a dead name, don't they? Samuel was my previous name. I'm not ashamed of it. Um, so I went down the pub and he was there. And I turned around and my brother went to me, Paul's there. And I went, yeah, so. And I turned my back on him. He heard me say it. And I said to my brother, thank you for doing that, because I was really annoyed that he invited him. He could have told me. Um, and so I left and went home. And then years later, back to my transition, he contacted me on Facebook, comes round my house. I'm standing in front of him in a dress with a like a headband thing on, like a turban-y thing. And do you know what he said to me? He said to me, is your cock any bigger?
What?
Mm. Isn't that incredible? I'm standing in front of you. I've told you I'm transitioning, and you've just come round my house, and because he told me he wanted me to f him.
His son told you that?
No, he told me in my flat
Oh,
he wanted me to. I'm not going to swear.
oh, right.
He wanted
Okay.
me to f him. have sex with him. Um, but that was never my shtick anyway. So that was never going to work because I was always a bottom, not a top, darling. Sorry, it's true. I was a bottom, not a top. Wasn't my thing.
I love it.
Right. So, and also that's another good thing because I always used to make love in my head as a woman. Whenever I had sex with a man, they never knew this, but I always made love in my head as a woman. In my
Wow.
head, that they're making love to me as a woman. I'm laying there in my head as a woman.
Wow.
No one ever
Well,
knew
I
that.
think, yeah, I think those are all those are signs that are very indicative that you are and would probably be better suited as a woman, most definitely, when your spirit is clearly feminine. And, so that feminine spirit in a masculine body must be very contradicting. So when did I mean, even though you are now living the life of a gay boy slash
Yeah,
man, when did you decide to transition into becoming a woman? At what point did that happen?
it was gradual. It was really gradual because I was in the same job for a long time, many years. I worked in business travel, corporate business travel, and I didn't. You don't when you're going to have a breakdown, you don't know what a breakdown is if you've never had one, so you don't know what the signs are. So I started to feel, that phrase again, different. Something was going on in my brain. I don't know what was, and I thought, okay, I need to change jobs. And then I had the thought of changing jobs. The next thing you know, I was headhunted by another company. So I thought, okay, well, this is design. I'll go with it. Okay. I went, started the new job, and they didn't give me what I wanted, what I asked for. They didn't listen. So immediately I started the new job. I've got all this pressure piling on. Next thing I know, I'm in the boardroom, 8 floors up, dealing with a new client, trying to get the business. And I remember being in the meeting and they want me to take on the account. And it was big, it was a big account. And I can remember being in the room and I can remember the mouths were going and people were talking, but I can't hear a thing. And I'm there. I can almost say it's like an out of body experience, but I was still in my body. But I knew I was moving my mouth and whatever I was saying, but I don't, do you know, I can't explain. And the next thing I know, I'm back at my desk and my boss comes up to me about 2 hours later and says to me, we've got the account. We've got the business. So, but I don't remember what I said, what happened. And then I was going to work with this deep heaviness. I was waking up every day with this pit in my stomach. It was a heaviness. And then I started to self-harm. Then I left the job. I just resigned. I didn't even ring in. I just left. I didn't answer my phone. I started self-harming. I was burning my face. I was burning my body. And then I had the breakdowns, put into a mental hospital. Then I had a few years of DBT therapy. And through that, and at the same time, I knew I'd been fighting. And also my last boyfriend was 2010. Last time I kissed a man. And then I had the breakdown in 2012, 5th of August. And then it was 2015 that I finally admitted who I was. It's at home. And I was in my top floor flat, my old building. And I was in the lounge and I stood up and I said, I'm transsexual. And I always say, when you verbalize something
Yes, it
and you
sets you
hear it,
free.
you hear it. And even now, I swear, there's a little spark in here, deep inside, that from that moment, because I felt like when I said it out loud and I heard myself say it, I felt like the only way to describe it is I felt like for the first time in my life, Chantel, all my neurons were connecting. like
Right.
they connected. And I remember it was like I was in my lounge and I was on a hot summer's day and the sun was coming through the lounge window and it felt like I was being hit like this energy surge. It's like bam, 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 bam. And I was like, oh my, I can't even tell you the feeling. Um, it was just like, it was just this energy going through me, finally admitting who I was. And I just felt like I'd arrived. I'd
Wow.
arrived. I knew I had work to do, but I'd arrived. I'd admitted who I was. So I'd just taken the biggest step ever.
You're right.
And in that itself, it liberated me from myself.
Believe you on that. Absolutely. That's fantastic.
It's incredible.
Did you, sorry, carry on.
No, no, it was an incredible moment. And then after that, that was 2015. And then I told my dad on Father's Day. Told my dad. My dad was really gracious. He said, I said, I got something to tell you. This was on Father's Day, 2015. And we're dancing in the kitchen. I said, I've got something to tell you. He said, what is it? I said, I'm transsexual. Notice I didn't say trans. I'm transsexual. And my dad held me at arm's length and he said to me, because we were dancing in the kitchen, and he said, are you happy? And I said, yes. He said, well, that's all that matters then.
Oh,
But I don't know if my father because my dad's 78 this year. So I don't know if my dad fully understood what transsexual was, but he still accepted it graciously. And I know it was difficult for him because we have had struggles later on. We did have struggles. But he accepted it in the moment. And I said, I'm not going to do anything for a while. I'm just letting you know. Nothing's going to happen. And then 2016, I went to my doctor, got my referral to the gender identity clinic, and and then I started to come out to the whole world. I
oh,
started where it, no, I went, it was 2017, and I went to see my mammy, Jenny, because mammy Jenny came into my life just before my mother died in 2008. She was gifted to me by the universe. I met her it's a long story, but I met her at a gay friend's wedding. And we became very good friends. And she's now my mammy, not my mummy. I love her dearly, but my mum's my mum and she's my mammy. Now,
oh,
everyone needs a mammy Jenny. If you're transitioning, you need a mammy Jenny, because I went down to see her when she lives on the coast, and I went down on July the 8th. I'll never forget it. As Samuel on the train with my dog. We went down to Brighton on the train, and I came back on July the 12th as Samantha on the train. And my mammy Jenny had got me spring, summer, autumn, winter wardrobe, underwear, everything you can name that a woman would need except shoes. Everything.
wow.
And we did a little fashion show. And that weekend, I went to the local car boot sale with a little blouse on and a little headdress thing and some skinny jeans. My first outing as a woman, publicly.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, and Mammy
Was it
Jenny.
fun? Was it
Um,
fun dressing like a girl publicly?
no, I was nervous as hell. Nervous as hell. He,
Did you feel good? Did you feel liberated that you could express yourself as a woman?
I felt, no, I felt awkward. I felt
Right.
awkward because I know that listen. I just got up that morning. And I had a blue 5 o'clock shadow, right? Pardon me. So I would have to use makeup to cover that. And in some of the early photographs, I can still see it through the makeup a little bit, right? Because I wasn't using then I started to use Dermacol foundation to cover it all. Because if you've got, and this is what I always say to anybody, if you're going to transition, one of my top tips for you, if you are going to be transitioning and you're not trans, because you're actually going to be doing the work, right?
Right.
Go and have laser hair removal on your face before you transition. Get every
Yeah.
single hair removed off your body. If you can do it and you can afford it, get it done and get rid of that facial hair, because that is going to be your biggest trigger.
Right. Can you
Right.
imagine?
Right. And you know something, actually, I haven't spoken about this, and I'm going to, if you don't mind, I really want to talk about the ladies' toilet.
Please do.
because I think this is really important for people to hear this story of mine. Now, please bear in mind that I'm a genuine gender dysphoric transsexual woman, i.e. a man, okay? Now, I don't have to keep saying that, because what I will say, when someone tells you they're a transsexual, you know what their gender is straight off the bat. We don't need to explain, okay? Don't dig any further. I've told you I'm a transsexual woman. I'm not proud of it, but I am. That's my story. But the hardest, when you're truly gender dysphoric person and you are having to live as a woman full time for 2 years, okay, and you've still got a penis, that is the most horrific time of my transition, because there's no worse a feeling, and I might get a little bit upset here, so forgive me. There's no worse a feeling than going into, when you're presenting a certain way and you want to be seen as a woman, and you have to go into that toilet and you know you've got to untuck to have a wee, and you have to wee on the porcelain. Now, I know I'm weeing on the porcelain. I always call it, you if you want to have a quiet wee, you piss on the porcelain, not in the pool.
Right.
It's a phrase. Piss on the porcelain, not in the pool. And that way you have a quiet wee, right? So it's always my sense of humor. So I'm sitting in the toilet, I'm sitting there, and I'm tucking and pulling it aside and trying to wee quietly. I've got one leg here and it's awkward, and then someone comes in the toilet and I stop and I freeze. And then I wait for them to finish, and I can hear the lady next door having a little tinkle, as I call it, which I love that sound. But even now, when I have a wee, it's not lost on me, because
Wow.
all that time that I spend tucking is it's not nice to feel that way. And I think us genuine transsexuals, when we're going through that, I think it's why it's important for me to tell you this. It's not easy for us. It wasn't easy for me. It was the hardest time of my transition. And when I got my vagina, which isn't real, but when I got my reconfigured penis done, and I sat down and I had my wee for the first time without my catheter, I can't tell you how beautiful that was for me,
Wow.
to finally sit down on that toilet and not have to tuck anything. I could sit down and have a wee like a woman, and I could hit. And one of my friends paid me the biggest compliment once, and he didn't even know it. I was on the phone with him, and we were just talking, and I went to the bathroom and I had a wee, and I was weeing, and he said, "Are you having a wee?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "You sound just like me, man." And I went, "Oh, thank you, babe." You sound just like me, man. And it was such a moment, and I was like, "Oh God, that's so beautiful to hear." Like, it's like not that I was seeking validation, because you have to seek validation from within. You can't seek it externally, because that's not going to make you whole or heal you. It has
Exactly.
to come from within, and then when you do the work, and then you radiate, and I don't know. It's so it's not hard going through that. It's not easy going through that, and I think if people hear this, what I've just said, they'll understand a bit more how difficult it is for us genuines, and not the ones that want to get in there and be pervy or whatever they're doing just to be in there. And I know those people are limited and few and far between, because there's probably a lot of times where people go to a toilet, they don't even know they passed a transsexual person, because we don't go about our daily lives looking for them. I don't.
Exactly.
When I go out and I use the bathroom, I will just go and use the bathroom, and I go about my business. I go in and come out, and I listen. I've gone into toilets before, and when I've been out, and I've been putting my lipstick on, and I have a little conversation with a woman. I've never had any problems, because I think women innately know, if because women have spidey senses. They have senses. They can sense,
Totally.
right? They can
Totally.
sense a predator, And if I'm just
Mhm.
going about my business, putting my lip liner on or putting a bit of blush on my cheek, or even that's washing my hands and going. And even at work, the times that I'd come out the toilet and be washing our hands, and girlies would be standing there, we'd be just talking at the sinks, right? I lived for those moments, right? Just being accepted by the girls, and like, yeah, it was a beautiful thing. I mean, my experience has been, I've had tough times. Don't get me wrong, Chantel. I've had really bad times on public transport. Um, I had a fight. I had a physical fight with a neighbour. I had 5 police cars at my house here. 5 police cars because my next door neighbour was he's now moved. He's now moved to Spain. Um, I mean, I achieved in 6 months what my neighbours couldn't achieve in 25 years. I got rid of him. um,
Well, there you go.
right, but he was being transphobic to me, so I ended up having a physical fight with him because he threatened. I could take anything you say to me all day long, right? I'm a big woman or a big man, whatever you want to call me, I don't really give a shit. Um, but I can take it. But the minute you threaten my animal, it's like threatening my child. I'm coming for you, right? All guns blazing. So 5 police cars came, and the police were like, they took my side, and but we got bound over to keep the peace. And I put my little sign in my window, my kitchen window, so everyone could see it. um, but then he soon moved. But yeah, yeah, I've had a few fights on public transport. Um, Verbal, not so physical. Nearly had a physical altercation, and the public don't really help you. The public don't help you. You really have to stand in your own truth and your own. Because I can remember one time I was on the bus, and this group got on, and the first thing that come out of this girl's mouth, she said to me, "Are you trans?" And I just looked at her, and I just thought, okay, I'll try and engage. And I went, "Yeah, yes, I am." And she went, "So have you got a cock?" Yeah. So yeah, so I then looked at her. I
Wow.
know, right? And then I looked at her in the eye, and I just put my headphones in. I went, put my headphones in, and then she waved her hand right in front of my face, like that. So I immediately pushed her hand away, stood up. Now, because I'm supposed to be the grown up in the room, right? On the bus. So I stood up and I went to her, enough. And I went to walk forward, and then one of her little cohorts, there was about 8 of them, stuck their leg out. And I nearly went flying with my handbag and everything. And all I can remember is I spun round and I said, "Listen, stop it, because one day you're going to have children of your own." Now, that probably went over their heads completely. And then I went down and sat at the front of the bus, and it all shouted the mouth. And then they were coming up, and then I had to go downstairs. I had to call the police. It all became a thing. So I stopped going on public transport. I no longer get public transport. I'll get a long distance train or a flight, but I have to medicate. Not a lot of people know this, because all of those interactions, and another one where I actually feared for my life on a bus once, when I was going to get my laser hair removal done. And 4 men got on the bus, and they interacted with me. One came and sat right in front of my face. Then one came and sat, then he moved away. Then one came and sat next to me. And I feared for my life on a Sunday morning in central London. And I've never been back and continued my facial hair removal because of it. Um, I will go back and finish it off, because I still, believe it or not, I still do shave a little bit. I've never told anybody that. Yeah, I still use a bit of a razor, because I haven't finished off my laser hair removal. These are all things you've got to take into consideration when you're transitioning, right? It's a lot.
You
It's a
know, all I'm saying, I mean, I have no idea how, I mean, to say I'm sorry, stuff like that has happened, it sounds so weak. But it's shocking to me that people will do that, that you'll be sitting there minding your business, doing your thing, and they will literally seek you out and bully the living bejesus out of you. I mean, it's just insane to me that people would actually do that, you know, and it's amazing to hear what, you know, of the things that you speak, you know, just the struggles that you've had tucking and the joy that it was for you to have a pee
Hey,
as a woman the first time. I mean, who would think that, right? Your facial hair. I mean, hey, every woman, let there be one stray hair on this face. You know, we pay money to get rid of that hair.
actually, it's funny you say that because me and my girlfriends were talking recently, and we said, right, what's the top three things to pack if you're going on a desert island? And two of them piped up simultaneously and went, tweezers,
Has to be,
and
has to
spray
be
hairs.
tweezers.
Tweezers,
Can be nothing else.
tweezers
Tweezers,
in a
like
mirror.
five pairs of them in case one breaks.
So true, so true. Hair is the enemy. Hair is the enemy. Hair is the enemy. But yeah,
But wow, I
yeah.
mean, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that is such a, it's so important for us as women to recognize that. But I also want to say, as a woman, I know we are a very welcoming bunch. I mean, this is why most women, well, most women I know have at least two gay friends because we chicks need our gay boys,
I
right?
agree.
You
I
know,
agree. Yeah.
we laugh, it's a different type of relationship you have with a gay guy to
Different
what you have
energy.
with,
It's all different.
yeah, totally. And
Everyone
yet
needs a gay best friend.
exactly. And they get away with saying things and doing things in the campness of their campness.
Not all of them are camp. Not all of them are camp.
I adore them, right? So, I mean, we will generally have gay friends. And honestly, for a woman, and I'm sure I speak for all of the women on this channel, um, you would certainly be a woman we welcome into womanhood, not womanhood,
Yes.
womanhood,
Yes.
because that's really, a woman has an essence. And that's the thing that a male can never emulate. There's an essence a woman has that you feel, right? And there are very few, and I've felt it with two males that have
Transitioned.
I was going to say transition, not transgendered. I was going to say I had the wrong
Transitioned.
word earlier
Yeah,
on.
transitioned.
Transitioned. And I could so feel that these men most definitely are, in fact, women, despite your biology, you know? And I've got to say, and that's why when we were chatting the other day, I asked you that question because I can definitely sense your essence is so feminine. So you naturally have the feminine essence that recognizes another woman's essence, and we in turn recognize your essence. So you would always be welcome in a
I
woman's
appreciate that.
space, most definitely.
But you know
What
something,
we do,
but that but I get this in the comments. Women do say that, and I appreciate it, I really do. But then you're gonna get those women that say, no, you can be
well,
kind, but no,
I
they do
think, I think this is why, us women also have to pull in our claws. We really, really do. I take huge offense to a dude walking in there, painted face, big hairy beard, demanding. No, 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 no. I must find a guy like that. I will personally take him on. I don't
I
care.
would.
Yeah, yeah, I would know. You have no place here. I have no problem. A gay man can come into my toilet. I don't care. It's about how you respect that space, you know? And I don't mind. Even a decent male, if he needs a toilet urgently and there's only a woman's toilet available, hey, buddy, come in. I remember my friend and I were watching rugby in Johannesburg one year, and let me tell you, there's nothing worse than interval time, and there's 800 women queuing with bladders,
Oh
right?
no,
And I
that's
was
a
like, no, no,
nightmare.
no, we're not going to do that. So what do? We go at the guys' loo, and there's a guy there, and we say to him, please, will you escort us in? We need to go take a pee. He goes, yeah, sure. So he walks us into the men's loo. The guys are like, we're just
What's
sorry,
going
guys.
on?
We're gonna use There was like three open male toilets. We sat there. We said, okay, can you just wait outside there, right outside the door? We don't want you moving. And then he waited
Gentlemen,
there, and we walked out very happy, and like everyone applauded.
I love it. I
Cool.
love it.
So, for me, it's not about the. I think we can easily share bathrooms. I think it has been done, and I know some corporate companies, yeah, even there's no separate bathrooms for men and women anymore. I think that can be done. It's how we respect each other's space.
Yes.
And yes, there are certainly women who are a lot more conservative. I mean, I know there are women that won't even go to gym with a man, so there are all female gyms. Yes, when you get into certain religious and ethnic groups, respect it. I think there should be the general consensus female and male, men and women. But I think it's really when it comes to respecting each other's space, that's more what it's about.
Yeah,
And that
I
for
agree.
me, and I'm so touched by your story that you were telling. And I hope that everyone who watches this shares this far and wide because we need to know these things. We take these things so for granted. I mean, you go to the toilet, you have a pee, right? You don't even think about how a man who's transitioned, taking a penis to a vagina, what that is meant for him, and what a celebration that is. And it really is. So I think it's beautiful that you've shared that with us because I think it's so important for us to realize that. And as I said, facial hair, give us one hair on this face, right? We go for electrolysis. My
That's what I need. I
beautician,
need some of that.
my
I need some of
beautician
that.
gets an emergency phone call.
I'm coming out. I'm on my way.
Yes, half an hour, half an hour. When do you have half an hour during your day? So,
That's brilliant.
so we can totally identify with that. Absolutely. And of course, as a woman, you want your smooth face. I can imagine that it most definitely is something. There are so many things, just the hormones, the therapy, the understanding, but there are most definitely men. And I want to just kind of like almost conclude with that and say, this interview with you today is such proof to me that there are men who, and I'm sure it's the other way around as well, but let's talk just on the spectrum right now. There are men like yourself who are genuinely born in the wrong body. And I'm going to say it like that. And I have so much respect for you for going through the process that you've gone through to reach the place that you have because you're a beautiful human being. I don't care. You're a beautiful human being. Women, man, male, doesn't matter. You're a woman and you're a beautiful human being. And that I think is what we appreciate in this world. And as I said to you before, you're welcome in my bathroom any day.
Oh, thank you so much, Chantal. I can't thank you enough. Today has been amazing. I'm glad I could share my story and help others around the world and yeah, and help save the children. That's the message here today as well.
I would love for you to maybe, I know there's so much more we can talk about, but so I'd love to maybe have us on for another interview at a
Yeah,
later stage.
I would love
Um,
to.
yeah, I'd love to do that. So we will now definitely be seeing you again.
Yes.
But, and another thing I wanted to say as well. I know I'm always hearing about transphobia, and of course, when you see what a lot of these students are shouting about and what have you. But I'm going, dude, no, 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 come now. If you are no, no, you can't expect that when you're behaving that way, people are going to be okay with that kind of behavior. It doesn't even matter what you look like. That
Right.
behavior is just offensive, right?
Well, I think, but back to that, I think when you're, because I saw there was um, a a trans rally recently in London, and I saw the banners where they're calling for the hanging of turfs. Now, that's that's male behaviour. That's male behaviour right there. because you don't see the women calling for the hanging of trans people, do you? Because
No.
see what's happened. Everyone was tolerant, right? Everyone was tolerant of the LGBT of transsexual people. They were tolerant. Now, what's happened with the trans activists? They are so intolerant. They are so intolerant. Everyone
But
has to accept what they say and have it rammed
exactly.
down their throats. No, it's not happening.
And I think, this is the genuine thing because hearing about your struggles on public transport breaks my heart. It really, really does. And I want you to know if I'd been, I would have slapped those mofos so hard.
But you know something, see the thing is about me, I would have loved, first of all, I appreciate you saying that, but I when you're I always say when you're representing, you can't act a certain way. I can't act like I probably would have done in my past. I think Samuel would have dealt with that a whole lot differently. But because now I'm walking
Exactly.
right, I'm
Exactly.
walking a different path
Wow.
now. I
There's
can't, right? I
exactly.
can't punch the F out of you on the bus, all of you, which Samuel would have done, not a problem. I have had to change my whole being, and
Wow.
also I found myself becoming a lot more clipped, like prim, proper,
But you see,
ladylike. Even though the other day you heard me not being so ladylike on the phone.
hey, listen, I mean, what is ladylike? I can tell you
You
the
know,
best, by the best and the most awesome women I know have also sometimes got mouths like sailors. Here is one,
oh.
okay? So they say people who swear a lot, you can actually trust them a lot more because we don't really think about our words and how to place them. It's like, oh,
Right,
so I I'm gonna go for that. But it's so true. That's another thing that you're saying. Your whole demeanor, you now obviously taking on the demeanor, and that's what I think what I was saying earlier on is the essence of a woman. Now, what you've said there again just proves to me my point that you are, in essence, the feminine, the woman, because you've understood that. Yes, you spent how many years running around in a boy's body, that and now it's like adjusting to being that feminine, beautiful, feminine being that you always know you are. Because quite frankly, when you look at that, it makes such sense. Now you can't just have fists fly and you don't know what to say. You don't know, you're not quite sure as a woman. Hey, we as women, yeah, yes, just know this for sure. You can shoot your mouth off as much as you want to. We're very good at shooting
yeah,
our mouth off.
yeah. I still can do that, but I don't like to get into fisticuffs anymore.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
That's what these are
That's
for.
that fine line between shooting your mouth off and shooting your fists off, right?
Yes, right. Very thin line. I'm like, okay, don't push me past that point. I'm like, step back, Samantha, step back.
Ah, I love it. So it really is, and to think about that, this total transition in every way. And it is such a personal, authentic journey for someone who really wants it. And you do not deserve the transphobia and the homophobia. Absolutely not.
Thank
And
you.
I know someone here. In fact, she was the first person to transition in South Africa. Um, and an absolute lady. And I mean, loves, I mean, you can see, in her previous life, she was an absolute woman. The dresses, the gown she wears when she goes out,
Dead
she just
envious.
loves being a woman. And there's nothing about her that is in any way slightest masculine. If I was not told that when I met her, I would never have known that. She would have just been this like eccentric old lady to me, very eccentric.
That's lovely to hear. And I think I'm sure she'd
Yeah.
love to hear that too. I mean, that's what we aim for. I mean, I can be in the park, for example, like walking the dogs. I'm there with my outfit on, and somebody will come through and say, "Good morning, ladies." That's what we live for. When you pass the street, there you go, my darling, or someone refers to you in the feminine. That's like a little ping, ping. You don't you're constantly recognizing them. Ping, ping, ping when someone is being kind, or they don't even know. But sometimes when I open my mouth, I can, give up the give up the ghost. Like, oh. Or if the dog goes missing, the other day the dog went missing. Oh my God, Chantel, was so embarrassing. Um, 1 minute my dog was there, I was speaking to somebody, and then she's gone. And I'm out in public, and then my voice starts to go a little bit deeper. I'm shouting for the dog, and I'm shouting for the dog. And I'm like, oh God, this is uncomfortable, but I'm trying to get her attention, but I have to shout this high. It's like, it just becomes, yeah, not so from the front of the mouth. It's from the back of the throat.
It's so hilarious.
Right?
I mean, it's so amazing to hear these things because these are struggles that you have that we don't even imagine. I
Yeah.
mean, and just wow, new respect, man, new respect. This is not something one takes lightly for sure.
It's so
So,
nice. It's so nice to hear you say that, because it is there's so many little things that you have to do throughout your life that you do you are constantly aware of, and it's not a battle. I mean, it's like I used to talk from the back of my throat, because over the years I've learned to talk from the front of my mouth, not from the back of my throat. Do you see what I
wow.
mean? There is
Yeah,
there is now I have to force myself to do it, because I've been so I've trained myself to speak from the front, not the back. So to go deep is kind of very difficult now it feels forced. Does that make
yes,
sense? Now
yeah,
it feels like I'm
absolutely.
forcing the butch when I can't do it now. It's like you know, it feels weird.
So, I mean, your friendship circles, do you have, I mean, are your friends transsexual? Is there a community of women like yourself that have battled, that have gone through the same journey as you, in your with people that you know?
Well, there's only my mammy, who I told you about earlier. It's funny that her grandson is now transitioning. So I only know one person, but we don't align. We don't align. Our views are completely. They would be attending a trans march, whereas I'm saying don't attend a trans march because they're your worst enemy. They're not your friends. You don't want to be in with that crowd. But we don't align, and that's okay. You go and do you, I do me, but don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. Um, don't be standing with those people because they don't represent you.
Right.
Represent yourself. I would rather be standing with the LGBT community in a gay bar than standing next to a trans person. Um, Transsexual people, I have all the respect in the world for, Chantal. I have all the respect in the world, but I cannot find any respect in myself for a trans person who doesn't do any work and you want to call
Yeah.
yourself trans, because I'm not proud of my transsexuality. I don't lead with it. Um, it may feel that way now because I'm becoming a bit of an activist. Well, I am an activist. Let's make it clear. I am Samantha Plested. I am an educator and I'm an activist. That's my CV. Everything else pales into comparison right now until I drive my message home. We get rid of the trans community. They all go back and disperse to the LGB and put this and restock the gay community, because that's what you probably are. You just can't admit you're gay or lesbian, and you're trying to belong to a group that you should never belong to in the first place. I don't want you here. My other sisters don't want you here. Put everything else back in the bedroom. Go away. Let's bring it back to 1990 levels where we had common sense. Male is male, female is female, gay, lesbian, bi, transsexuality, um, asexuality. We had it all before. We've all had our rights. Let's stop playing games now and let's all get back to reality, because you're not transphobic for saying a woman can't have a penis. A woman can have a. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
A woman cannot have a penis. Let's be serious and that's it. What else can I say? You know?
Right. It's quite interesting, I watch people like Charlie Kirk in America. He's one that goes around to these student campuses a lot, and I
Yeah.
just watch some of these students that that come to at these rallies. I mean,
I love Charlie Kirk. I was
No,
watching him this
Charlie Kirk
morning.
is amazing.
Yeah,
I like conservative values. I'm a girl that's brought
me
up
too. Me
on a
too.
farm in South Africa. I've got conservative values and I've got a very open mind though. And I really do believe that people need to there's as a double Aquarius, I'm such an advocate for freedom. But freedom is not running around breaking down buildings and burning things up. Freedom is a place you find within. And it's the freedom you have that you know you have a choice. It's the freedom of choice that every minute, and sometimes we need to make a difficult choice. That is part of our freedom to choose
Yeah,
this life. That when we chose to come into this life, there are going to be difficult choices to make. And we either choose truth or we choose deception.
right.
And, anything that doesn't open your heart center from the deepest place is not coming from truth. Anything that makes you angry, frustrated, sick all the time consistently, and it doesn't mean you're never allowed to get angry. Of course you do, just don't get stuck there. Doesn't mean you're not allowed to have a bad day or an argument with someone. That's called being human.
Yeah,
But face it, deal with it, and move through it. So freedom really is about making the choice to be true to your heart. And that is not always, and it's never an easy place to get to. But, I'm saying that again to you because it's obvious to me that you reached that place. You would have had to have such an excruciating, and I use the word excruciating because that's what it is, journey of self-discovery, of needing to understand every glitch in your little matrix and being okay with it, you know, and then choosing to make the choice nonetheless, the difficult choice. I think it's easy to be in the male body as a female and just be run rampant and take drugs and be promiscuous and what people often do when they're very
mm,
uncomfortable. But to actually sit, go through the process, do the work to get to the place where you're at, go through the abuse that you've been through,
mm,
um, from people that have no right being abusive to you at all, and then to reach this place where you can say, I'm comfortable with who I am and I love who I am. And wow, what a journey it's been. And to actually sit here on a platform and use your voice to encourage others who also have the same, because I think as well with this whole transgender movement now, there's so many confused kids and teenagers and
yes.
parents. But I do believe there are still those that have that genuine desire, and maybe they being pulled back now because of the chaos that the others have created.
Yes.
But for those who have the genuine desire to go through the transition to becoming transsexual, it's, to me, from what I can see, not an easy journey, but a well worthwhile journey when you reach the other side.
I feel, said to my brother the other night, I feel, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for your kind words. Um, but I feel at the happiest, I know I've had a few tears today, but I feel in the happiest space I've ever been. And yeah, I feel blessed to have got to this stage in my life and to fight, yeah, to loving yourself and get into this space. It is a beautiful place to be. And I wish this for all my other transsexual brothers and sisters around the world, because this is the sweet spot. And
Absolutely.
you will only reach the sweet spot when you transition later in life. You're never going to reach the sweet spot if you don't have a life. If you transition when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, you've been fed a lie. You cannot transition to a woman. You will your life will never be what you think it's going to be. The fantasy in your head, that bubble is going to burst quicker than you know it. Because whether we like it or not, and I think this is very important for me to say this, men and the way our bodies, our biology, and the way we evolved as human beings, men generally want to, in the main, want to see a little bit of their DNA with their partner's DNA running about in front of them. Now,
Right.
I've had this conversation with a friend of mine, and she said, well, they can always get a surrogate. And I'm like, well, that man has got to love you a lot to take that off the table and love you, because this is where this is why they're trying to normalize transsexuality. You see, it's not, it's a mental health disorder. They declassified it. I accept it as a mental health disorder. I accept I'm not a woman. And in that, if you accept all of that, that's when you find your sweet spot. Right? There it is right there. You're going to have an unhappy life. Go and live your life as a gay or lesbian, because that's where you're probably going to be. You're not trans. You've been fed a lie. And I'm sorry they've done this to you. I'm so sorry. And the adults need to step back in the room and they need to say, F the woke. I don't care anymore. I've got my voice. I've listened to Samantha. She says I'm not transphobic. I'm going to stand in her light too. Because I've got enough light for everybody, right? It's all here. And I'm going to speak out my truth, because when I feel that my women friends, and I'm not going to say cis women because they are women, and that is the moniker that you've always had. It will never change. You are women, biology. That is how it is. I am a transsexual woman. You are a woman. All the
Right.
cis nonsense can go. It's a
I agree.
slur. It's a slur. And I
I
refuse
agree.
to use it. Because if you respect women, you wouldn't refer to them as cis if you wanted to be one bad enough.
I love that, because that is to me incredibly insulting
Yep.
that I have to be called a cis woman and a childbearing person.
Yes, right. I saw that the other day.
Childbearing person.
Person. Well, well, you know, men can have babies now, can't you? So, you know, it's
All right. Right. That's a woman.
God. I mean, I see, I look at that and I think, if you had gender dysphoria that badly, why would you? I know they say, well, everything's on a spectrum and a sliding scale, but surely if you had gender dysphoria that bad, carrying that baby would be triggering on every single level I could imagine.
Absolutely.
Because when you got someone like, say, Marcus Dibb, have you heard of Marcus Dibb?
No.
Marcus Dibb is called the offensive tranny on YouTube and I think other platforms. The offensive tranny. He's a trans man, and hysterectomy, all of it, to get further away from being a woman as much as possible. So
Right.
having a baby and then posing on the cover of a magazine with your beard, with your big pregnant stomach. I remember it years ago. Was it Vanity Fair when they said, like, man pregnant? You know, those like sensationalist headlines. Man becomes pregnant. What load of Bullsteiner? It's a woman with a
The
beard,
woman, absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Woman.
Proudly displaying her stomach on the cover of a magazine. That to me is like you're doing it for fame. You're
Yeah.
doing that for
Absolutely.
some sort of attention, for fame, for clicks, for something. Like, I'm not doing what I'm doing because, and I said, what someone said the other week to me, that the conversation was being had and the word fame came into it. And I went, that's the worst thing I want. That's the last thing I want. I don't want fame. Nobody does what I'm doing for fame. Why? Do you see what I'm saying? This isn't for fame. I think people need to get that misconstrued, because I don't want to appear on a TV show. I don't want to go on Strictly Come Dancing. I've got a mission. And my mission is talking to you and other podcasters and getting my message out there. Do you see, that's what I'm about. And that kind of, I was really offended that day, actually, because I thought, you don't realize what I'm doing and the anxiety it causes me to sit here and talk to, even though sometimes people may think it's easy to do. It's not. We know it's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy doing this and talking and giving of yourself, and talking about your experience when you're trying to save lives. That's the difference between me. And I even said I did a YouTube earlier, and I said, I'm not about making money on my YouTube channel. I will swear, I will speak what I want. I'm not about monetizing it. And you can take it off if you want, but I'm going to speak my mind and speak my truth. I don't care. It's my channel. I will F-bomb. I will whatever bomb when I want to do it. And I'll get my message across and speak how I speak. I haven't got letters after my name. I'm not an expert, but I've got a lived experience at 54 years of age this year.
Exactly.
That's it. All I can do.
Samantha, what a treat it's been to
Thank
spend
you.
some time with you. And I must say, we've been on for about 2 hours, so I'm not sure if I'm going to split the interview in two or if I'm going to play it all in one. Um, I'm actually not sure. What do you think? Should we split it in two? Play it
I
as
think
one?
I think you could split it in two. Couldn't you split it in two?
Yeah, we can do that.
We could do that. Well, I'll tell you what, it's up to you, your choice. I don't mind as long as we're going to get our message out there and we're going to, yes, build a community. That's what I'm doing, building a community so we can push back
Absolutely.
and save the children.
Absolutely. And really, I love the message that you brought for us today. And I want to just say I so appreciate you for your bravery and your courage and just sharing your story with the world. It's
Thank
not
you.
easy. And I think we all need to have our eyes opened up to what it is, with someone like yourself who's been through what you've been through. There are many people in the world like that as well. And I'm sure it'll go to the other side as well, women wanting to become men who have that genuine desire to just not be in this body, right? So we've got to respect that. And I certainly do. And I don't think anyone on this channel needs any convincing of that because I know we're a cool bunch here, and I don't think any of us have these transphobic tendencies, um, as you were explaining. But shocking to hear what you've been through as well in terms of that. And guys, let's all just be kind. Everyone is fighting their own battle. We don't know what the next person is going through. And by all means, if that guy, even if he's going through his drama, which clearly is, but if he's coming into my bathroom or whatever with 6-inch heels and beards and muscles and tattoos, wearing a short skirt with his
Oh,
scrotum hanging out,
there's
sorry,
a vision. There's a vision.
I might
I
have
don't.
to edit that
I
out.
I don't know what I don't know what I'd do with that if I saw that. I don't know what I'd do. Well, my leg would come up for sure and be straight to that scrotum in a heartbeat. And he would be on the floor calling about holding his nuts in the second, and then I'd be dragging him out of the toilet by his hair. Um,
Brazil did that. I saw a video clip actually. It looked like it was in Brazil. These chicks were taking no nonsense for they they grabbed this guy out. There were like three of them.
I love
They,
that.
oh
I'm
yeah, they
sorry.
grabbed him.
Yeah,
They hit him with a shoe.
you have to send me that, please. Sorry. Oh,
Absolutely hilarious.
all
No,
right.
I'm sorry. That guy deserved that. No, I'm sorry. I'm not even going to pretend that, oh, they shouldn't have done that. I'm going, you go, girls. You absolutely do that.
There's something like a little
Absolutely.
pack of women to
Yeah.
come at you, I'm telling you.
Right.
Oh, I
I don't
love
want
it.
that either. Trust me.
That's hilarious.
Uh, what a wonderful conversation.
Thank you,
And
Chantel. I appreciate
Samantha,
it. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything you would just like to say to wrap it up?
No, I just thank everybody for watching, and I thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the platform, and hopefully we can spread the message and we can push back and build a community. And I'm on X, change SGC Plested, and same, I believe, on YouTube and SGC Plested on Instagram. So
We
I'm
are
gonna.
going to have all of Samantha's details in the description area. So if you want to get in touch with her, follow
Any questions?
any questions,
Always here.
absolutely. Well, we're definitely going to have her back. In fact, it'd be nice to have you on for a Q&A. Would you be keen to do a Q&A?
Yeah, I was just thinking that you just read my mind. Anybody can come through to your questions, and I'm an open book. I'm not shy about answering any questions at all, no matter how big and how small. I'm here.
Okay. Well, then our next show with Samantha, watch the space for when it's going to happen because anything is possible.
That's
We will
right.
be doing a Q&A, which I think is brilliant.
I'd love that.
Um, just I mean, if you're a person who's transitioning, if you are just have questions, if you have kids who are going through something like this, I think that might be you might be a brilliant sounding board for parents
Yes.
who've got children and are
Yeah.
battling. Oh no, we definitely having you back, babe, beyond a shadow of doubt.
Thank you so much.
So Samantha will be back on ARA very shortly. Watch the space, and we'll be doing lots of Q&A, and all your questions from Samantha will be answered.
I look forward to
So
it.
yeah, it's going to be
Thank you so
amazing.
much, Chantel. Thank you.
God bless you, everybody. Take good care of yourselves. Have a fantastic weekend. And as usual, what's usual about today? Don't be good. No, don't. Don't.
So